Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. Socrates. There's a quote ascribed to him where he says, "Strong minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. Weak minds discuss people." This whole episode is dedicated to me sharing what Socrates meant here, but also what is the next thing? What is the mind discuss after people? Where are we going? And so this quote, when I searched for it, to be honest, there was also another quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, which seems to be similar, as if Eleanor Roosevelt read the first quote I read for you, and as if she adapted her own. But I'll tell you the quote from Eleanor Roosevelt. Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, small minds discuss people. So keep these two quotes in mind, whoever's listening. The world finds itself initially through the experience of a person. The person wonders where they are, their attention comes to an event. After the character in a story, imagine, the character is aware of itself. It is aware of the settings, what's happening in the environment, the events. It will go on to an interpretation of the environment more than it is. We have something in pretty much, you can say, in an academic viewpoint where you can't study ontology without phenomenology. So how you interpret phenomena suggests how you become something in this realm. To be honest, when I was deciding the title for this episode, I was thinking that, is it a circle? Could it be that we go from the analysis of a person to the observation of an event to the experience of an idea? Or sorry, I should say it like this. Do we go from the unconscious body of people to the conscious event of the world to the observable idea and to the unspeakable experiencer? There is something for me that it's as if many philosophers, many scholars, they feared it. For me, there's one idea in religious texts that out of all the ideas in religion, for me, had a very important significance, just the fact that it was mentioned in the Abrahamic traditions when you look at those books. It is the notion of the apocalypse. For me, there is the concept of death, which is like the apocalypse of the inner, just the end of the person. But for me, when there was a notion of an end of the world, that idea is so unfathomable because it's as if the world is dying. In certain religious texts, they speak about seven skies and they say that the sky starts to crack. Like as if we're in a simulation and the walls of the simulation break. And then we're resurrected in reality. what do we find? We find that just pretty much on a, I don't know, when I was in school, people were more important. The reason kids didn't pay attention to in class was because they were looking at people, they were not caring about the event. It's as if, like, I feel it's strange, but I feel knowledge and its value arises to the person maybe after the age of 30. Maybe stretching from even a bit younger, but it's after a certain point when you realize movement as a mind surpasses just looking at how bodies are. Do you know? So you can think of it this way, that people are an alphabet, and an event that takes place is like a word, and multiple events, they lead to the evolution of ideas. you know and so from ideas, where do we go? Where do we go when we have found the greatest idea of them all? Let's say truth was Lord of the Rings style, and Gandalf was like, hey Frodo, here's the ring, here's the truth. What now when we had the one ring? When we had the one idea that covered everything. For me, truth has been taken seriously, but from the past, not from the future. The poet Rumi says, I have to share this because it's one of the rarest poems on this planet, which points to the inconceivable in this way. The poem from Rumi, this poet from 700 years ago, he says, I died as a mineral and I became a plant. I died as a plant and I rose to animal. I died as an animal and I was man. Why should I fear death? When was I less by dying? I shall die once more, to soar with angels blessed. But even from angelhood I must pass on to that which no mind has ever conceived. It is the positioning of the inconceivable. It is the return of the reverence of the unknown variable to the moment. You know? That means you can only discuss people if you know things. You can discuss events if you know things about the event. You can discuss ideas, but you cannot discuss the unknown with whatever amount of knowledge you find. Even Socrates says the only true wisdom is to know that you know nothing. So if we are, and look at what's happened, guys. See me as an example. I'll even share it from my own life. When I was young, much younger, yeah, I was looking at people. I was like, what are people doing? What do people want? What do I want as a person? Da 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 da. Just a level of reality where it was just, I was looking at the chess pieces. I was not looking at how the chess pieces were moving. And me being a chess piece also. So then I became aware of the event, how it is moving. So first you're aware of position. I'm a pawn in this chess game. Then you see, holy shit, I'm a pawn that's moving. The event is taking place. The dynamic nature of the world is at work. And then as being a specific person, changing, going through various events and experiencing different senses of personhood, you can never have the same idea. That means, believe it or not, I've tried every day to try to speak about the nature of one common denominator here, of all phenomenology. And you know what happens? We cannot. It's impossible because we change. So this is why ideas have the most eternal value. Think about it. People, they are transitory. We're temporary. Events, we are less temporary than people. We celebrate like ancient events, but the ancient people who started those events are done. The people who started the Olympics, they're gone, but we're still celebrating the Olympics. Okay? So events are more eternal than people. They have a longer legacy stance in the current psyche, in the collective psyche. And then we have ideas which are the most eternal of the things. I've had many people ask me, like, why do you talk so much? And I'm like, okay, we're on a rock in the middle of nowhere. What else can we do? Aside from moving our body, moving our attention is the only thing we can do. And if you can move your body and your mind, your attention, in a way where they are not resisting one another, there is strangely, karma is like a river. When you're going against it, oh man, karma's so tough. When you go with it, it becomes your ally. And so it's this weird thing where it's like when the person does the right workout and has the right diet, then they see results. But if they do the right workout, they have the wrong diet, or if they have the right diet and do the wrong workout, what can they attain? So that's the thing. Do not have people as your enemy. Do not have events as your enemy. And only thing that's granted to fight, that means if there was some sort of enlightened society governing all the dimensions of this earth, its one instruction would be, O creatures of your realm, treat the realm like art, because this art is not only drawn by you. The hands of many universal sectors are writing on earth. So what I'm trying to say is that both Eleanor Roosevelt and Socrates, they noticed that to discuss people, it is lesser in value than discussing the event, and it's lesser in value than discussing the idea. When you see teachers in the educational system, they explain at best the people. They don't animate the event. You know, that means all the teachers in the world have forgotten that people remember journeys. They don't remember random photos where they can't integrate into their psyche. That means people remember through engagement. A child sitting watching the teacher, they just move and the child's trying to be a statue. What is this shit? You know, no child can learn like a statue. You know? I honestly feel the educational system, a true educational system, shouldn't allow people who don't have questions about the world, about knowledge. Do you know? Because a lot of people enter the educational system not to actually know things, but to know enough so they can get a higher paycheck. Knowledge has been forgotten just for the sake of knowledge. Do you know? And university professors are so shy and so statuized. So turned into lifeless objects that it's scary. For me, the university professors that I see, the way they teach, they're trying to be nice. Nobody learns from just nice. That means it has to be dramatic. We have to have theater incorporated in the performance of the teacher. And the students should also be part of the play. But this means a totally reformatting of the educational system. As if all schools, the building is the hardware. The way the school is organizing itself in the building is the software. Now, what should have been happening all this time is that children should update the schools they're in. Not just come in like a bus stop, wait until they get out. You know? Now, here's the dilemma. What do we find in social conflict, in even situations of, let's say, political intensity? We see people pointing at people. And then we ask, why are people pointing fingers at people? We see it's because of the events they have done. So even though we are people here, we're judging everybody based on how they have been a person. Really, law is like meditation. You're aware of the invisible that is visible. You're aware of the inseparability of the collective system's intelligence and the individual in the collective system. Because I am telling you, I am tired of seeing people wanting to fight without looking at what they're fighting at. Everybody wants to bring down the patriarchy, you know? Too many conversations I've had on this, you know? Where I'm like, if you want to bring down the patriarchy like the patriarchy, how are you different? Do you know? How are you different if you use the same means? You know, it's as if like we're like, yeah, we're peaceful, we're beating the shit out of the people who are controlling us. Imagine it's like, what is the what is, as Friedrich Nietzsche says, be careful that in fighting a monster, you do not become a monster in the process. I'll give you an example. Since childhood, I would say my nature wasn't angry. I'm not an angry person by nature. That means when an angry situation happens, I don't care for it too much, you know? But there has been situations where I've been in angry, like angry people have spoken to me, and just for that moment, just in speaking to them in that moment, it seemed like I had to get onto the same stage as them, you know? By the way, guys, I apologize from if the noise from outside my window is entering. I mean, these are the sounds of our society. And so, where are we left? We are left as objects trying to motivate themselves through subjects, not realizing that from the beginning to the end, they were never an object subject or a subject object. That's all of all belief systems. For me, I don't care who you are, where you are, all belief systems in the world filter to me in two ways. They're either seeing it causal object first, or they're seeing a causal subject. If they see a causal subject, the unknown is moving the known. If they see a causal object and the effect is a subject, they're seeing the known is moving the unknown. And that's the difference. We have been fighting over methods. We have been fighting over different binoculars and lenses we have put in front of our eyes, but we can't fight because energy doesn't have psychology. And when we realize this, we're going to see the blessing of our behavior. We're going to see the blessing that in this rock in the middle of nowhere, an advanced civilization can be built. The only game to play. After the individual life has failed, the collective life remains. This is why it makes sense from the beginning to realize that you are not on the earth, you are the earth. And then you will take care of it when you remember this. Because there must be something to do. The conscious waking state is literally being harassed by meaningless tasks. You know, self-existence is so meaningless to me. Because the self knows its end. It's like a candle that's not doing anything its whole life. And imagine that our minds are candles, that their purpose is to travel everywhere. Do you know? That means imagine a civilization that sees no other purpose than advancement. It is the ultimate of the ultimate. In a realm of motion and change, advancement is the ultimate conscious truth. Advancement means for eons you have been unconsciously moving as elements that could not direct themselves or their speed. Now you can. Now you have become a velocity to life, a direction with momentum, accelerating towards interstellar dreams. Because the game so far is everybody is like an engine of cause and effect. Everybody is causing things where there is an effect. There's something, oh my God, I'm going to share this. It's Heidegger, this philosopher, he has something called the hermeneutic cycle. And pretty much he was someone who was really looking at ontology. And what he does is he creates this, a hermeneutic circle. Let me see if I can find an epic picture for it. It's really, he's pretty much saying, come on, let's see a good picture of it. Hang on, guys, let me find this picture. It's so worth it. Okay, guys, so whoever's tuned in, I want you to look at the wallpaper of the talk. I'm gonna put a picture there. This is the hermeneutic circle by the German philosopher Heidegger. And you see, philosophers, we're not here to care about their cultural program. We're here to care. That means for me personally, the content is more important. That means the what is being said is more important. What is being said in the microphone is more important than the microphone. So anyways, in this hermeneutic circle, it says experiencing things. We start from there. So I'll read it for you. How we interpret and understand our experiences influences how we experience things, which influences how we interpret our experience, and so on. So what does that mean? That means there is a state of silent observational experience, then that creates a context. After having a context, you have a concept. So literally it's context building, concept building. The mind is going through these two phases, you know? You can say the experience is the concept. You experience something, there's content literally, and then there is the context to the content, which is the understanding. So when somebody says they understand something, that means they can notice the object and subject, the phenomenological part of it, and they can see it, and they can understand what it implies in a bigger circle. Do you know what that means? That means pretty much life is all knowledge is a relationship between concentric circles. Imagine there's one circle, giant circle called experience. Okay, then there's a giant circle called the idea. Then there's a giant circle called, or here, let me say it like this. You have a nature of an experiential field-like attributeless witnessing mind. This is the first circle, the big circle. Then in this experience of the field of mind, then you have the subject, then you have the object. The object is covered by a subject which is being covered by the witness of everything in the moment. So the whole moment is comprehending things. And I think that's maybe the point with understanding, where we have suddenly realized what we are standing under, an endlessness. The testament to our species' greatness is its endurance into the void. For how long we want to keep this show going, and we find a sort of pride, a sort of honor for how life is a source of movement. That means there's a lot of things. I can tell you in this lifetime of mine, I would say if at the end I was on like the end on my last breath, I will know this world was too big. It was too big to contain in the psychology of just a person. This is why you have to notice your non-dual eyes before you can surpass duality's demise. This point about the Heideggerian influences, really like, it's kind of like when you wake up in the day, you are a piano. And every event that happens on this piano, as you go sequentially throughout your day, is like a note being played. And I feel it's like some people, they wake up in the morning, they're just staring at the piano, nothing to do with it. Some people look at the piano and they feel, okay, maybe not yet, maybe I'll play the piano in a little bit throughout the day. Then there's some people who can't wait to wake up to start playing the piano. And what tends to happen is when you start consciously living, just being mindful, appreciating how the stillness and silence of your mind and the movement and the sounds of your body, You know, a sort of algorithm to smooth karma could be perhaps politeness to the existential experience. Because the thing is, for the, if like a lot of people, if there was a lot of stories where they say, like, if they suddenly found an audience with the truth, what would they ask? If you could ask one question, you know, about the truth, what would it be? For me, some people, you could say their question is, why God? Why did you create all this, all this? But my question would be, why am I in front of you right now? That would be my question. Why have the eyes opened? And the fascinating thing is, we had to have them open first before we could ask the question why. You see, all children, the moment they find language, they get acquainted to language, they become philosophers. I feel all children are philosophers. Pretty much the child's like, why? Why this? Why that? Why this? Why that? The child's like trying to figure out. You know, and a parent who sees a child that's inquiring about the nature of the world, that's when you should really, that's when you should inform. We are a civilization of people. These people are experiencing events and they're also causing events. 50% your free will has to do, 50% the world's moving the way it likes. It's like, what can you do? You know, this was something I understood when I was young, playing soccer in streets in Iran when I was a kid. And when I was playing soccer in the streets, it was pretty much everybody in the, every kid in the neighborhood in the evening would come outside, and there was a soccer ball, and we just designate. We wouldn't make goals. We would just designate from one corner of something to another corner of something. That's the goalpost, you know. And so sometimes there would be, like, you would put small bricks or stones you would find or something, two rocks as a goalpost, you know. And so we would play, and whenever a car would come in the street, the car would wait, you know, and everybody would quickly go to the sides. And everybody would honorably quickly go to the sides, because the sooner the car got out of there, the sooner we could start playing. So everybody, when the car would come, would become this perfect, like military gladiator movie scene, like when he's like diamond column or something, you know, like it was something like very organized, because we knew what the moment, the event, everybody was conscious of the event. When, you know, that kid who wasn't conscious of the event, people, all the other kids are like, get out of the way of the car, you know. So that's the thing. And in that simple moment, I can't tell you how much ontological revelation is there. We designated the goalpost. We found the soccer ball to play the game. We all gathered in the same moment. We respected the moment while playing the game. Do you know? And it was a sort of one system doing its thing, but simultaneously contributing to the overall, or at least respecting it. You know, because here's the thing. It's like there's good, bad, and then there's the neutral passive dude that's just walking by. You know, it's like we've totally forgot. We should create the legend of the neutral passive person. You know, this myth going around that there's some people in the world, they don't have an opinion on their own opinions. You know, they're so passive, you know? Because the thing is, when you experience life as a mind, technically it means you don't necessarily need to limit your experiences to your body. So sometimes when I like give these talks, and there's moments of it where I just like get emotional, and I just like, I mute it for you guys on the other side, but on my side my eyes is closed and I'm just experiencing the internal object, the noumenon. So it's this kind of cycle, and we're natural beings. And you look at the body, it's not, it is symmetrical. There is a symmetry at work, but it's not like robotic. Do you know? So what does that mean? That means we're not designed to calculate knowledge like a machine. We're designed to observe landscape, and based on our considerations of how the dimensions are, move in it. I don't know who drew this picture, guys, but who drew it did a great service to their species. Because we are reaching the moments where we have to become content with our loneliness because the world is not updated enough to come and find us. You know? This is something I remind myself that whatever, I mean, think of it this way. Imagine you want to be in a civilization 10 steps ahead of now. So when you see somebody do something that's taking the whole civilization maybe 2 steps back, all you can do is laugh. Just laugh at how silly the concept of failure was as long as you're alive. Nobody knows enough to know if they have failed. You know? This is why you divide your experiences between micro battles and really keep your joys and pleasures to the macro victories. That means pretty much this life, this planet is a workstation. We don't realize it yet. That means some beings are like, imagine it's like a corporate building with cubicles and everything in every floor of the building. And then like some a bunch of like, you know, a tourists who have no clue where they are, they've come into the corporate building and they're taking photos of like the cubicles and everything as if like, holy shit, look at this tourist place, you know. Look at this attraction, you know what I mean. And so what it means is some people have come into, I'll give a better example than corporate space. It's an airport. Some people are on flying for business trips. Some people are flying for leisure. Some people are flying for escapism. You know, there's a lot of refugees on this planet, and the suffering of life really is not just objective. It's like after you have the physical issues of life complete, then you think about, wait a minute, am I an intelligent being right now? What does that even mean? You know, and so then you begin caring about how your unique DNA is its own instrument which you have to master. Nobody can be the teacher of eyes, only you have. Do you see the issue? That we are you have to literally step out of the ethnocentric conditioning and come to the neutrality of the advanced communicator, which has become a person that is no longer a thought, but they are an observance. Because the reason is we have been identifying with a static interpretation of the human being. We're taught, our language is acknowledging us as if we are pictures on a wall, but the nature of reality is an endlessly changing film. Do you see? Civilization needs new archetypes. And perhaps that's why 8 billion people have voices. That there is never a justification in this life not to go forth. Doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you are evil person, good person. The nature of life is to go forth. And then once you see the bigger picture, once in the middle of your individual life's game, as you suddenly notice the collective game, no longer you care about competition with people. Do you know? The only person, I would say, the only mythological personality that I have found myself a sort of a jealousy. I honestly have no opinion on anything in my realm, but one thing I am, which I am in a race with, is time. For me, the only thing that is bullying this species is time. And the potential that's there. If we didn't have potential, if we were literally primitive, you know, like if we were all savages right now, then I'd be like, yeah, we can't do shit. We're savages. Like we got to just keep being savage. But only passion has its own folly as well. So this is a good measure, just to bring it back to the title. that any person, you can look at anyone in your environment. It could be family members, it could be friends, it could be lovers, it could be anything. Look at where their mind is. Are they looking at how people are they looking at how the event is going forth? Are they looking at how inefficient people are they looking at how efficiently event go? And are they realizing that the value of ideology is not to put it on your face and think you are it, but is to find the new? The new is sacred, yet the past doesn't see. The past worships, not realizing revelation has not stopped. It's experiential now. This Gnostic Christian priest, Meister Eckhart, he said a sentence that, like, I don't know, it shook me. It was so heavy. It was like he had managed to word an emotion that had completed the human journey. Where Meister Eckhart said, the same eyes I see God are the same eyes God sees me. Just take that in. The inseparability of the whole moment. Your moment is fragmented by your attention to its contents. So in the middle of playing this piano song, it's like the person starts from the beginning of the day playing this piano song in accordance to their inner realm, and suddenly you see it's like random events occur where different sounds are entering the person's piano song, and the person's recognizing the deviation of how they are naturally to how the circumstances of the environment based on the fear or flight reflect it, in the amygdala, I think that's what it was called. So you see, it's like if you fear, you are living in a dishonest world. You're never here. Only the fearless get to live on earth. The rest never see it to be on it, And if we fear our own planet, like finding ability and control with it, then what's the point? The whole idea, science is even saying this similarly in regards to the types of civilizations we want. Buckminster Fuller, Marshall McLuhan, these guys talked about it. Spaceship Earth. We want to become so advanced on this planet that the planet becomes our spaceship. For the first time, we can move our planet when our planet has only moved us. And technically, the way to move our planet is to move our sun. But people should look up the Dyson, what is it, the Dyson project or something? The Dyson cup? So I see this, I see that when people talk about people, they are unconscious of the event taking place. When people talk about events, they're unconscious of the ideas behind the scenes. When people talk about ideas, they're unconscious of the direct experience where from a silent position you actually hear everything. Sometimes I think about it when I speak, images come to my mind. But when I listen, images come to my mind too. So it's as if it's like when I sometimes listen, it's as if I am thinking in another dimension when I listen to someone else, because the realm, the content passes over, you know. Now, if we look at these dimensions of a dimension of a person, there's a dimension of the events taking place, regardless of what people are. That's law, which it's very important for the citizen to realize. It took us 4 billion years, 5 billion years to evolve just so we can be able to acknowledge law. Law is civility. But laws also need to update because it's the mind of people creating them. I honestly think in the future, AI is going to pretty much replace the need for a government, because people making decisions in governmental positions, it's all based on information, right? So we are saying that people are information processors. They process a sensory range of information based on how they've walked on this in this world. I don't know. After a while of, I'll tell you personally, like after you play, you explore the inner realms for a while, you just discover possibility. So imagine right now you had access, let's say it's, I don't know, let's say it's 120 years in the future, and people somehow, strangely, it has become casual that it's like, just like how we have phones, it's pretty normal for everybody's head to be connected to the internet. So nobody needs to have internet on their phones anymore because their brain has Wi-Fi reception, you know? You know, literally the person meditates and it's like Wi-Fi mode. They get access to internet actually, you know, in their meditation. Can you imagine? So my whole point is, if you had access to all information, your life force will no longer be directed based on information. After you have played the games of how form is in a realm, then you move on to this listening to the teachings of the realm. Let me tell you what it is. It's not like a teaching teacher mindset. It's not a guru disciple thing. It's a dialogue with your universe. It's a personal dialogue, because thinking is like dialogue, you know. Thinking is literally processing through a subtle level of speech. So I wouldn't be surprised if we check this out. You know, this is, I personally tested this for myself, and I found a efficient way to test it, where I started saying a sentence. It was like one, I noticed this suddenly. I started saying a sentence, and then I started saying it lower, lower, lower voice, lower voice. Eventually, I was saying it so low, I noticed it's indistinguishable from thinking. So when we think, our voice box is moving. The uniqueness and creativity of man also has to do with the observation of the instrument. We are like an instrument that every time a chord is pressed on it, it learns from itself. An instrument that is playing itself and mastering its own melody, you know, life's melody. Fear has defined us for too long. Love has been passive for too long. And so where are we left? I think the Shaolin monks hold the secret. I feel there is too many ancient wisdom is like a backup system when modern society feels like a fool. And what the ancient wisdom says is that if you treat life as if it's alive, we're usually tend to treat the world as if it's lifeless. We're in a room where, like, how could atoms have a mind? Ha ha ha. We laugh while we have minds, you know. You know, but if you treat that your world is alive, the subconscious, the context of how your mind is simulating to itself will be eternal. What does that mean? That means that we have experienced being a temporary being and being like, what the hell? The world is endlessly here, but we vanish? What is this? You know? You know, so it's like when we notice that, it becomes a situation where we see the flip side, as Alan Watts says, to um, wake up as if having never gone to sleep. That's the game. That's the next game. We have played the singular dimension fear game. Now it's the love of the multidimensional, you know? That means, I think the same sentence that says, for God's sakes, can in the future say, for a multidimensional world's sake. Use your voice while the microphone of the opportunity of life is in your hand, you know? This life is not about desires. I'm telling you, desires are it's very animal-like. You know, it's like what was the point of evolution if we're behaving the same way as our ancestors did years ago, like animals? This is why when I see violence, I'm like, that's disgusting. You know, how could the human mind not realize there's a human mind? The value of the mind means we are such a fragile position. And when you look at people, there was a time where I could look at a person and I would be angry and I would be like, look at that piece of shit. You know, like it was so easy. Then I realized what I was degrading in my own psyche was a human being whose ancestors had gone through all of this. It's so honorable when you think about every person's DNA, that it's like we are, whether we like it or not, regardless of how stressed or the person feels, you have a warrior genetics. The DNA has been fighting to stick around. Your ancestors pressed the right buttons in this existential video game for you to be here. So that's how you honor your ancestors, by realizing you are the genetical torch that's passed down. And now the way the person honors their ancestors is not just every day bowing to a statue. The way they honor their ancestors is by asking themselves, why were my ancestors living for me? When I think about it, it wasn't to believe in a system. It wasn't to just have some sort of ideological allegiance to, choose this thought out of the store of market of ideas compared to another idea. It's like the point of it was to get to see what else the world could be. In this Japanese show called Shingeki no Kyojin, there's this character called Commander Erwin. The soldier's freaked out. He says, is life meaningless? And he says, no, we find meaning in our lives by fighting for those who will one day find the meaning. That means just because we don't have answers doesn't mean everybody stops caring for the civilization. Complexity for the inferior vision is fear. You get scared. You don't know. Too many unknown variables. What could it be? What couldn't it be? Is it healthy? Is it not healthy? The unknown forever is scary if you think it's stronger than you. But when you realize, I am telling you, there was a lot of things I had a fear of. Only when I realized I am the unknown, it was the laughter of the gods echoing in my ear. That's how you become fearless in this planet, where you are like, who is fear? How has fear dared arise? This doesn't mean being ignorant of physical laws, like touching a fire or something, like fear, like be conscious, be mindful, be alert. But I'm saying, do not let fear dictate you. That's how you become anybody who's afraid, you have become a servant of your mind. Your mind is cornering you into the kind of bewildered animal psychology. That's when the soul comes in to set its own mind in order, This story I often share. This man felt broken. He felt hopeless. He felt rejected by the world soul. He felt broken. This is a story back in the day, guys. It's a story during the Christian Gnostic times, where that ideal was arising. And so what's happening is, back in the day, this guy, like really far back in the day, he doesn't know what to do. He's hopeless. He's just walking in a forest and he's reaching that breaking point, this sort of strange existential crisis, where he says, universe, God, give me a sign. Why? Why am I here? Why have I been so disadvantageous, universe? Why? The guy's shouting this, as if it's like an unknown soul shouting at an unknown cosmos, everything it knows. And what happens is, the guy's walking in this forest in this sort of strange apathy, in this weird kind of anguish, this anguish of no meaning to what I'm doing, And so as he's going, he suddenly sees something that makes his head shake to the other side, as if it was too unthinkable for him to look at. He sees a wolf that has no legs, but it's a grown wolf. And he gets shocked because he doesn't understand how this wolf could have survived without legs and it's grown up. Like, he's shocked. You know how somebody sees something forbidden and they just cover their eyes? In Eastern traditions, there is something like that. You know? That if you knew the sacred, you would also know when not to look at it. This guy sees this limbless wolf, and in his mind, literally, he's shocked, speechless, just paralyzed with disbelief. And suddenly he hears a growl, and the wolf is silently there. The guy runs up to a tree as if he has better cinema seats. And he goes up the tree, kind of lying down on a branch, watching what's going on. And as he's seeing this, he sees this this lion, this mighty lion, come and throw this meat in front of the wolf. And he's never seen anything like this. Of course, the story's set back in the day, but if it was someone now in that situation, it'd be like, how do I call National Geographic? How? And so what happens is that the lion puts the meat and the lion goes after a very loud roar, scaring off anything in the environment, and the lion leaves. This man suddenly feels his prayer was answered. This is a divine sign. And he realizes that he is the wolf. And he feels there's nothing he can do in his life. And he's like, that's it. God's gonna, God is the lion, and God's gonna come and feed me. And the guy, after seeing this, identifying with a limbless wolf, this grown man, he goes on the street and just lies down in the corner as if impaired. He's perfectly fine. He's perfectly healthy, but he just lies down in the corner like, I can't do this. He acts like a limbless wolf. He acts pathetic in front of himself. As he's there for hours and hours, the patheticness leading to an acceptance of being pathetic, and he's just there. Suddenly he notices the sun that's hitting him, and his eyes are closed as he's leaning against this wall, the stone wall. He sees a shadow. He opens his eyes. He sees there's a Gnostic priest. You see, priests weren't, of course, back in the day, they were like philosophers, technically. Do you know? That means these Gnostic priests, they were like these very, some of them were trying to live these very pure lives, and they would even put a skull on their table, like in their cathedrals or whatever, and they would just to look at the skull to think about, what does death mean? What the fuck? What does it mean? And something like that. And so this Gnostic priest is coming by, let's say he has the emblem ME. I don't want to say it's Meister Eckhart, but let's say he has that emblem on his on his thing, somewhere on his shoulder or whatever. And so the Gnostic priest stares at this guy and he's like, why is this grown man at a time where everybody's trying to build the world in advance? Why is he just sitting there? And he calls the guy up. First thing he says, he sees pathetic behavior and he says, get up. And the guy stands up, and the guy's like, holy shit, is this guy like a sage or something? And he suddenly starts telling the guy the story. What happened? Sorry guys, my attention got distracted for a second. Yeah, pretty much the guy's like, listen, priest, I went to the forest. I was feeling like I'm nothing, you know, and I saw this. I saw this limbless wolf, and he tells the priest the whole story. And he's like, priest, I made a prayer. I saw that. That was a divine message, right? And God was telling me, you know, you limbless wolf, I'm going to feed you in that divine message. And suddenly the priest says, hold on. He says, you are right. That was a divine message. But God didn't show you that limbless wolf and that lion, so you think you are the limbless wolf. The universe showed you the lion, so you realize you are the lion. And the guy's like, holy shit, I misinterpreted the whole message. That it wasn't a message. It's like it was saying, don't identify with a silent, limbless wolf. Be the roaring lion that feeds the civilization's growth. It's the roars of the mind. What else can happen now? We have lived as objects, howling subjects around, and now it's like subjects moving objects, and we've played that game, and we're left with the witness. A civilization that now has to honor its own silence before any word was spoken. We have to return to the ultimatum of the blank page. Then rewrite civilization. For the wrongs are just, they are there as long as the system allows, you know. So let's say a person talks about people, been there, done that. They talk about events, been there, done that. They talk about ideas, been there, done that. They come to the unspeakable experiencer. Towards the unspeakable experiencer. That is the next mystery. That is the uncharted territory. That is what all philosophers, artists, and any person should wonder. The next uncharted territory. The extra terra incognita. And it's all about recognizing, in regards to your outer realms, whatever you see in front of your eyes, that is all about alertness. It's about accurate information processing when you are when you're piloting in the outer realms of your plane of existence. But when you pilot from the inner realms, I say the sentence where the pilot of consciousness navigates as the whole plane of existence. So you are literally piloting your expression on this planet from an inseparability of how the idea of you and how the world event are simultaneous. Because people, it's like literally, it's an avoidance of the event. This is why the New Age community and all the gurus are like, come to the here and now, folks. Holy shit, come to the here and now. Because when you are a person, you're lost in the idea. So what it is I think this is the pattern. I think it's idea, event, it's idea, experience, idea, experience, idea, experience. Even though Socrates has said it in this three trio model, I think it's actually like a sine wave. You know what I mean? That means it's like the person is an idea, the event is an experience. You know, the idea is a person, you know, and then we have the experience of an event. So right now, it's like we are going from a person's relationship to an idea to now a direct experiencer's relationship with an indirect event. I think that's that model will hold. So anyways, guys, let's go into a Socrates quote tunnel. Let's see what Socrates had to say, you know. There we go. By the way, Socrates, some people treat him like he is pretty much, when you look at Western thought, Western ideology has many of its roots in the Socratic tradition, if I can say. So anyways, let's go. A quote tunnel, I pretty much read quotes from people who, just to see back in the day how their eyes open to the world. Socrates, eat to live, not live to eat. Imagine that was written on every fast food store, fast food place. Socrates says, may the outward and inward man be at one. Yeah, pretty much he's telling the bewildered soul to chill out. Socrates says people learn more on their own rather than being force-fed. Socrates says, I cannot teach anybody anything, I can only make them think. Socrates says, to fear death, my friends, is only to think ourselves wise, without being wise. For it is to think that we know what we do not know. For anything that man can tell, death may be the greatest good that can happen to them. But they fear it as if they knew quite well that it was the greatest of evils. And what is this but that shameful ignorance of thinking that we know what we do not know? That's the whole thing, guys. This is the difference between conscious and unconscious living, where the person thinks they know what they do not know. Yet exploration is granted. Exploration is authorized, but not assumption. Do you know, if you notice, like, I'm trying to, I tend to speak in a way where I am separate to the events of my speech. I am kind of like an omniscient observer of my own voice. Socrates says education. Excuse me. Socrates says education is the kindling of a flame, not the filling of a vessel. To find yourself, think for yourself. I have to clap for this. This quote is something that I don't know, it's just like, why don't people get wisdom quotes tattooed on their body? It could change lives, It's like, imagine the person tattoos like their, PhD thesis on their back, and it's like, do you have a PhD? Yeah, check out my back, bro. you know? You're at a job interview, it's like, oh, you have PhD. What was your thesis about? You just, show your back, instead of a 50-cent tattoo, Okay, sorry guys, back to the quote tunnel. Socrates says, from the deepest desires often come the deadliest hate. Socrates says, an unexamined life is not worth living. Yeah, I mean, why do you have eyes? It's like, why do you have an awareness? Why do you have a mind? Just to see what is the worth of that which is alive in the moment. It's such a personal kind of awareness of the impersonal that I can't. Socrates says, worthless people live only to eat and drink. People of worth eat and drink only to live. You know what that means? That means, in regards to food, and it's not eat and drink, he's like, work, he's like, pretty much like, don't celebrate. Let your celebrations be 10% of your effort. How would I say it? If you have worth, you're seeing worth in something beyond yourself. It's never just seeing a value of self, It's like idol worship there's two ways. You can worship outside idols like celebrities, or you could worship yourself as an idol. For me, I could tell you what has been going on this planet from the beginning is self-worshipism. That's it. Self-worship. It's all about moment, like spheres of attention, which are going based on what is accessible to them. Socrates says it is a shame for a man to grow old without seeing the beauty and strength of which his body is capable. Socrates says once made equal to man, woman becomes his superior. Somebody had, somebody slept on the couch, back in the day. So it was probably like a, the couch back in the day was probably like a bundle of hay or something. It's like Socrates is like, oh man, another night I gotta sleep on the bundle of hay. Socrates says it is I read that. He says he who is not contented with what he has would not be contented with what he would like to have. Yeah, if you can't see the value of what you have, that means you're like a soldier on a battlefield who hasn't understood what you have at your disposal. So if you can't see the value of what you have, what makes you think you could see the value of what you desire to get? Imagine you found truth. It was in your hand. You had it, but you could not see it. So it's all about the sight. It's about the mind's life more than just the body's kind of entanglement with potential, quantum potential. Socrates says I read that. He says, the secret to change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. That means don't try to find redemption from the past, live for the new. That is the ultimate redemptive step. It's like pretty much being street smart in existence. Being cosmic smart, Cosmically street smart. Socrates says the way to gain a good reputation is to endeavor to be what you desire to appear. Socrates says the envious person grows lean with the fatness of their neighbor. Socrates says, let him that would move the world first move himself. Socrates says, whenever therefore people are deceived and form opinions wide of the truth, it is clear that the air has slid into their minds through the medium of certain resemblances to that truth. The hottest love has the coldest end. No citizen has a right to be an amateur in the matter of physical training. What a disgrace it is for a man to grow old without ever seeing the beauty and strength. Oh my God, why is it so much to repeat? Socrates says, he is rich who is content with the least, for contentment is the wealth of nature. It's not that contentment is also harmony. I would say pretty much yin yang. Taoism saw that light. Socrates says, oh man, I know what this guy's doing. The website, the guy doesn't have many quotes because he wants to make a big web page. He's copy pasted the whole thing. Oh my God. Yeah. Be slow to fall into friendship, but when thou art in, continue firm and constant. Guys, something I want to point out about the hermeneutics circle um, from Heidegger. It's as if like pretty much the idea is saying in your life realize it's like a cycle. You can even see it as a spiral, maybe. That it's like a cycle where you have from the overall view, it's like an endless camera zooming in and out, in and out, in and out. So kind of like a cycle from the intent of something, its content, then the context, its implication. So pretty much big picture, and then how the big picture is made of endlessly small pictures. I feel we cannot avoid the multidimensionality of our being. We have to become conscious of the unconscious. Pretty much Carl Jung was like, do that, kids. You know, unless you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Unless you actually look at the content of the world you have intended to move in, you can't move efficiently in. There's no such thing as secret ways to learn or like a way of knowledge. It's all about you're an animal in a temporary event. And so you ask yourself, do you have questions about where you are? Do you wonder what you are? Do you care about what is the potential of the ultimate generation of the mind? Do you know? That means it's like, here's the cool thing. The best way civilization could be is like 8 billion, you can say, the evolution of 8 billion advanced communicators into pilots where there is no such thing as fear. There's no that we have suddenly equated that it never made sense to break things that take a long time to build. So the whole point is we don't fight the current civilization. We actually live as if we have seen a better one. You see, that's the whole thing in life. It's like there's a story to your meaning and to your motivation. A lot of people, they let the story of their lives be defined by outside of them, so their freedom is not up to themselves. It's as if they've literally kicked out, they've taken their own free will out of the driver's seat of their own story of life. Right, so that means that it's like some people can need the outer realms to change before the inner realms can change, right? But some people, they're like, okay, the outer realms changed. That means it's like every cool person and every uncool person in history, time has pretty much conquered everybody. Time is the cool guy. You know, everybody else is just a mirage in a desert of potential where you could have done something that echoed longer than you. The whole point of being alive is like, oh my God, are we gardeners of an advanced civilization? Could it be that there's no longer a need for rebels? People have to have the graciousness of activating decent behavior in this system. What mysteries lie in the unknown, in the depths of the unknown waters behind the eyes of man? Imagine it is midnight and you are standing not at the top of a lighthouse, but at the edge of a lighthouse before the unknown waters of the sea. And you're there as this little kid, imagine, I'm just animating a story here, go with it, guys. But imagine you're there at night and the lighthouse isn't even like its light is on, but it's not even shining that vastly, and you're there looking at the depth of this vast ocean where its edge is not visible to you. And for me, I'm telling you, your mind is as fascinating and as deep and as significant in its content and its levels of its content, that it is like unknown waters. And who has dared use their mind to build a raft? Because that's what the Dharma was. A raft on the oceans of ignorance, that this world is such endless cause and effect. It's as if we are living, walking on the street, being like, oh, it's so nice, but suddenly not realizing the implication of every action, every motion. Our brains have been like masters at work from day one, and we have been just kind of like chilling. Do you know, for me, everything I have seen has been processed. And it becomes instantaneous after a while, where you let the world just do its thing. And when you let the world do its thing, it surprises you. This is why Bertrand Russell said tolerance, charity, the ultimate moral advice to humanity. That you have to forgive the inefficient until it becomes efficient. Those who want to punish, you have been pushed too hard in this life. And if you can't forgive yourself, you will never be able to forgive the world you deserve. We are the eyes of heaven on earth. We are that rare opportunity in this vast, long evolutionary cycle. We are the journeyers towards the inconceivable. And if we could be playful with the unknown and serious with our knowledge, we attain an advanced civilization automatically. Like you did the right moves for the Rubik's Cube and it happened. It's just that the person has to realize it's okay to not know some things. Nobody on this planet can know everything to process and consider. So we can, after some point, we're not like robots that can remember everything all the time. Do you know what I mean? So that we have to keep civilization with the artist psychology. That means imagine police officers in the future, firemen, just public servants of the realm. After they served and helped their service, they saved that person from the burning house. You know, then the person would also have a sort of artistic dimension and narrative. Do you know, imagine a fireman who saves this kid, and the kid's like, were you scared when you were in there? And the fireman's like, yeah, but it was also such a unique experience. Do you know? Do you see what I mean? It's like we don't limit ourselves as just what we have seen so far. You know, and violence is a last resort. Isaac Asimov would say violence is the last refuge of the incompetent. It is true. It is true that brute force, yeah, you could be a big gorilla in this life. But like, but being a big gorilla, and it means, but this gorilla has a brain. So it's like there's a reason Sun Tzu, one of the greatest generals ever lived. In The Art of War, he says, the true warrior defeats the opponent without moving his sword. That means you keep your true strength for emergencies. Then you playfully live in life. You know? And then when suddenly things get intense, that potential has always been there. Because I'm telling you, let me tell you what happens with fear. Let me tell you something, a personal story. Let me be the example. In my youth, I was not only shy, not only had I felt a feeling of unauthorization to express myself in my outer realms, but I was just like as just someone watching from the outside of like a soccer game, just watching from outside, you know. like I felt a sort of I was too young to know that fear wasn't worth it. So I had given into my fear. I had accepted that it's like the outer realms doesn't need the inner realms, my inner realms. So my inner realms were technically, I was like a passive robot, but in my outer realms, but in my inner realms, I was just alone. This feeling of not being alone physically, but in your own mind in regards to the meaning you see to the context of the whole life event. I felt alone to my own mind. I felt like like as if it's like, especially being introduced to religious ideology, it was just in the politics of the nation. It's like they asked the person, "Oh, okay, how did you get introduced to religion?" He's like, "Yeah, man, it was just in it was in the laws of the nation, so you had to be aware of it." You know, that's the situation in some countries, at least. I gave in to the fear, which means I accepted the weaker archetype because it was more comfortable and visible. It took me a while to realize, especially from a quote from Jonathan Swift, where he said, "Vision is the art of seeing the invisible." When I stopped fearing the invisible, my mind had no choice but to endlessly reobserve how it's being visible to itself. You see, honesty is like Thor's hammer. Those who wield it, their karma. Let me tell you something. Think of it this way. Think of it. There are two people. One lives honestly. One lives dishonestly. The dishonest person and the honest person reach a point in their life. Let's say this story is taking place in a world where there's a super dimensional entity, a hyperdimensional kind of mind figure to everything. So these two figures, both of them ask the mind dimensional, the god of their world, for help, and the god of their world responds to the honest and doesn't respond to the dishonest. It's only in that moment the honest and the dishonest understand what they were doing. Do you see, a lot of things is like brewing in the moment? It's like sometimes I've looked at my life and I'm like, oh my God, nothing makes sense. Then literally like 2 days later, I was like, yeah, everything makes sense. It's all good. Like it's been something like that. But it is the case that they say in any sort of communication, whether with its animals or with people or with higher dimensional events or rhythms or as them, you require mutual respect with your realm, but it doesn't mean you should have mutual trust. That means when communicating with the realm or anything, you should hold to your righteousness. But as you speak, do you know what I mean? It's like, think as if when two people are speaking in another dimension, you're seeing those two people drawing on like with one empty canvas of a silence of one moment with words. You know, we're just communicating worlds. And if civilization realizes there is an outer realm to our psychology and there is an inner realm, this would be one of the most phenomenal advancements because it doesn't change anything. It's a model added. I'm telling you, this inner realm, outer realm, this distinction, if it enters the cultural program, it would revolutionize our language of how we are talking about things as being normal or crazy. We will realize it is a development. It's a co-creation. Literally, that's what a team is. A bunch of minds trying to see the bigger picture. This plane of existence, you don't have to fight it and you don't have to artificially love it. This plane of existence just has to be piloted honestly. That's it. You live like that, nature becomes your spirit guide. Your whole moment is it not a universal event? Or is not an event of the universe taking place right now? And as I'm speaking, as you're listening, are we not in a cosmic event right now? We have been cosmic before the word cosmos was created. Now it's time for the neo-human being. And let's also honor the movie Matrix. When I say the neo-human being, see it like Neo from the Matrix. The Neo era, the simulation, you know? We notice that the world has opportunity. The world isn't shackled to human ignorance. The world is alive. We are on a giant turtle. That's where civilization is built on. The giant turtle is the heartbeat of a living cosmos. That's the peak of true experience. You're alive with your cosmos. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I'm going to share, I want to encourage anybody who's here. I've concluded that till the next 30 years, before the technological singularity and computers become a very giant part of our lives, our natural lives, we have time to advance the user of technology. What that means is I'm encouraging every human being to share their inner realms, not with mindfully, of course. Share your inner realms. Now more than ever, communication is the step towards evolution, not something physical. It's about minds recognizing excuse me, that through discourse their salvation is right in front of them. Justin Z says Neo Sapiens. Yeah. I have a very unique idea here, but that's an incredible term. So good job, Justin, for adding that. Let me tell you this. It's the galactician. We are evolving from an object subject to the subject object, now noticing even the subject. That means Socrates would be like, I think if Socrates saw the potential of our civilization and how much it's not activating its own potential, he would laugh. I could hear Socrates laughing if he was alive now. He'd just look at this and be like, no way! And he'd laugh, you know? Fuad in the chat section says, why does it not more so rather, why has it not? For it is not new by any means. What do you think? Um, oh, okay. So when you say it is not new by any means, Fuad, I'm just looking at your comment. So you say, why does it not more so rather, why has it not? For it is not new by any means. What do you think? I think the reason it has not is because it hasn't seen a way it can. That's it. That means when you think about someone's life, you could look at someone's life, you can totally see there's other people who are living in their blind spots. Fuad, the thing I could tell you is the merger of, good way of saying it, by the way, you say the meaning, the merger of outer and inner. The outer and the inner is being watched. We are becoming the silent watcher. We are for the first time reaching a way of defining who we are, what our intelligence is attributeless. That means all of history, they've seen the cup full. For the first time, we are seeing the cup completely empty and recognizing it's like, how can I tell you? The void is the ultimate, is the infinite permission slip. So guys, anyways, thanks for listening. I'm going to share these links. The public Discord for this group, pretty much I have this idea, I call it the School of Athens 2.0, and I'm trying to get global philosophical conversations going, because the School of Athens was a place where philosophers from around the world would come and debate, and then the spirit of rhetoric. So it was a kind of a very creative, like, dialogue. It was minds wondering about the unknown, you know? So I decided to kind of, in a global cyberspace community, you can join the Discord server and you can actually come into a group discussion. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. And from people to events to ideas, back to Socrates. Socrates has realized the unspeakable experiences here before the speakable existence. So therefore, we are free before freedom was a concept. Much blessings and awesome.